Welcome back to another episode of Innovation Minutes Live. I'm Dan Gonzalez, and I'm joined by my co-host, Anna Akbari. Today, we are talking about the rise of bureaucracy. Well, not the continued persistence of bureaucracy is probably the better title. So this actually comes from, or was inspired by a recent article by the Harvard Business Review based on their annual survey of companies and how bureaucracy continues to permeate. This was actually put on our radar by a colleague of ours, and it just kind of confirms a lot of what we've been seeing on the ground, with the different companies we work with, not just in Silicon Valley, but across the globe.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. They call it the bureaucracy mass index. Very clever, or BMI. Very memorable. And a lot of the takeaways are not necessarily surprising, but when you start to see the numbers, I think they can be really compelling to a lot of organizations that might say that they're innovative, when in fact that's really not what's happening on the ground. So for instance, one of the most striking things that the article points out is that something like 80% of respondents said they don't feel that it would be very well received if they were to pitch or initiate some type of experimental or innovative programming, and that the majority of organizations feel they have to stick to business as usual. And so I think the question there is, where is that coming from? Are they not being given permission to do it? Is the framework not being sort of institutionalized so that there's an opportunity to do that? Are they being penalized when they do? But whatever it is, I think that's one of the key takeaways from the study, because that's going to be pretty much the #1 thing that's going to prevent those organizations from competing with their Silicon Valley competitors.
Yeah, well, and it also just I think it further underscores the point that this is how startups start. People working in their day job and whatever it is that they do, their area of expertise, they also have, what I think a lot of companies fail to realize or recognize is that they have a personal life and they have personal interests. And it's been shown time and time again that the root of innovation comes from the cross-section of different disciplines and ideas and environments and experiences. So, when this occurs inside of one person, they want to bring that into their professional life in some way. And if they can't do it in their current day job, and if there's not the white space for that to be able to happen, then chances are they're going to go off and start the company themselves. And that's where startups come from. That's what Silicon Valley has kind of grown into embracing, is this culture of innovation and the ability to allow one person with a great idea, regardless of where it comes from, to take that idea and grow it into something a lot larger.
Well, and I think also one of the signature qualities of startups in Silicon Valley, a Silicon Valley mindset, is trimming the fat. And that's where you see a lot of elimination because of a scarcity of resources, and this desire to iterate as quickly as possible. So you're trimming the roles that would impede that, and trying to operate as lean as possible. And a lot of times that means eliminating some of the middleman managerial roles. So you have the people on the ground that are actually doing the work and that have a good sense of what's needed. And then you have the C-suite, these executives that can help to provide the big picture guidance. But then you have this kind of murky middle area where sometimes it's unclear what their useful role is. And I think it's hard to find a better example of an attempt by a large company to eliminate that than Zappos and Tony Hsieh when he was implementing his holacracy. He basically said, managers, you will have a place here, but you're going to have to redefine your role. And as a result, they lost 18% of their workforce. And not having spoken directly to Tony Hsieh, I would think that he would say, I expected there to be a drop off, and that's actually a good thing in this case.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can say they lost 18% of their workforce, or they were able to get 18% more efficient.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, not that efficiency is the ultimate goal, but I think that's an interesting figure, because you could probably look at any business in the Fortune 500 and say, an 18% staff reduction is probably the right number of redundant positions, or positions where other people not that you want to give more work to people who are already working a lot of hours, but at the same time, I'm sure the people on the front lines that are working those hours would appreciate a little bit more autonomy and the accountability that comes with it. And yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I think one of the other interesting points is that even when you have the executive team saying, go forth and be innovative and experiment, sometimes some of the employee base is so entrenched in that old school mentality that they fight against it. They don't submit to it, and they therefore don't support their peers who are trying to do that. So, you know, getting the right executive team in place and helping them to realize how they can support their employees is really, really key. But then you also have to train your employees so that they know how to start thinking that way, because chances are a lot of them have come up in this arena where that is not permitted, and so that takes a lot of unlearning on their part.
Yeah. No, and I think, you know, that was to me the biggest takeaway from the article, is that, you know, the survey, when asked about frontline employees and their ability to execute and make decisions and be accountable for those decisions, I think a majority of the frontline employees agreed that that should be the case. And also, surprisingly, a majority of the C-suite agreed that that should be the case. So it kind of begs the question, who doesn't agree and why?
Yeah.
And I think that's everything in between.
So we want to know what your company is doing to offset and fight bureaucracy, if anything, and where you think it's getting stopped up, or what could be done to make it flow better and to be competitive. So let us know your thoughts on bureaucracy in the comments, and we'll see you next week.
All right, see you next week.